time on this Tuesday for the weekly pecking order. And I'm feeling the festive spirit of the Major League Baseball trade deadline. And we're kind of refraining on the main Mackey and Judd show here from talking too much baseball trade deadline because it's playing out as we're recording this. And so we'll do a full recap once it makes sense. We did recap the Jorge Lopez trade with Patrick Royce because that happened as we were recording. But I have for you guys here, I have the 10 most valuable trade commodities, players in Minnesota sports right now. And I'm talking about the 4 major men's teams. So this is Twins, Vikings, Wild, and Timberwolves. And I am ranking the players that have the most trade value or are the most untouchable, if you will. I don't think most of these are untouchable, but if you traded them, that hey, it would cost you something to acquire these 10 players. I got a couple honorable mentions here too, and I'm trying to rack my brain if I'm missing any here. And so I'll run through this list, but this pecking order presented by our friends at Equity Partners. So in addition to Ryan at Equity Partners being a huge fan of Purple Daily and SKOR North, and we appreciate that, he's also a huge fan of just helping make the house selling process 100% hassle-free. So what you get with the We Have program when you partner with Equity Partners is they will fix up your home before you put it on the market, from simple fixes to total remodels, helping you get the most out of your home. And then it allows you to move before you sell. You don't have to worry about contingencies, about timing it up. You can put offers in on your next home, non-contingent on the sale of yours, which is enormous. EquityPartnersMN.com if you want to find out more. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
This
Give you a different bed, though.
Okay.
Give you a little NHL bed. We've been running through the NFL bed for a while, so I figured
Love the
let's do an
bed.
NHL TNT bed.
That's an executive producer move right now. Change up the bed.
Yep.
Freshen things up. Yep.
With a great one, too.
Okay, 2 honorable mentions.
Yep.
Daniil Hunter.
Okay.
I think he would have been on this list pretty ironclad. I mean, he would have been like top 3 on this list maybe 2 years ago when he was setting records for youngest player to get to 50 sacks, and I still think he's got a chance at the Hall of Fame, but he's got to bounce back here before his prime is over.
Sure.
I don't know what a team would give you for the more broken down version of him the last couple of years. Like if you put him on the trade block right now and said, hey, which you wouldn't, a team might give you a first round pick, but I think teams would look and say, hey, he's only played 7 games in the last 2 years. He's going to be more valuable to the Vikings right now, getting healthier, improving himself, than he would be in a trade.
Yep.
So that's my take.
Agree completely.
I've got Matt Baldi as an honorable mention as well.
Ooh, okay.
20 years old. He's playing already at age 20, playing at a 70-point pace, and just looks like he's going to be a cornerstone here. Not quite the cornerstone, but a cornerstone of this franchise for a number of years. So Matt Baldi and Daniil Hunter are the honorable mentions.
Interesting. Okay.
I'm guessing you guys would have put Baldi in the 10 somewhere.
I got to hear your 10.
Yeah, I got to hear your 10. I thought this was going to be a 5, so the fact that this is 10, I'm even more juiced. Let's go.
So these are players that would garner the most value in a trade.
Okay.
Number 10, Kirk Cousins. One of the 14 best quarterbacks in the world in a league with 32 teams and maybe 20 to 24 teams that are pretty good with their quarterback situation. This is a simple supply and demand ranking here. I don't think he's worth having the 3rd highest cap hit in the NFL.
Right.
But there's always teams out there that are, look at Baker Mayfield is fighting for a starting spot still after all the leadership and injury questions.
Kirk might be low on that list. But
Maybe.
Maybe.
Could be. I think if the Vikings would have legitimately entertained offers, and we know that they took phone calls and had some conversations, but it sounded like the ownership was strongly encouraging, be careful trading Kirk Cousins.
Right.
You had caught wind that maybe there was a couple second-rounders on the table at one point. So would a team have offered a first-round pick for Kirk Cousins? Maybe not a high first-round pick, but I think he could have snagged you a late first-round pick or maybe a couple seconds. So he's 10th on my list. Number 9, and now they're definitely not trading him because they're adding pitching as we sit here and speak, but Carlos Correa. His contract limits his trade value because he's in control of the player options twice now in years 2 and 3.
Yes.
But he's an excellent shortstop. It's a premium position. It's hard. It's a little bit like quarterback in that you got 30 teams and there's only like maybe 15 or 16 truly viable, all-encompassing defensive, offensive shortstops. And he's been a proven leader and a winner in clubhouses his whole career. So if you did decide to trade him, even with the player-friendly, or the player leverage-friendly contract,
Yep.
you'd be able to get a couple really nice prospects for him. So Carlos Correa is number 9.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And he's got I believe he has a small, or a list of teams he can't be traded to this year. And then if he were to exercise, which he won't, his option
Full.
for 2023, it becomes full, right?
Yep. And I don't know that anyone's
but I've not seen
reported
the
his
teams.
current list. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
anyone's
I've not
reported
seen
the
the
teams.
teams.
And now it doesn't matter now. He's not getting traded
I
today.
always like to know who you hate, though.
I
Like
agree.
Perk. He told us. What? Tampa Bay, he said.
I don't remember what he said, but yeah, he did have a limited no
He
trade.
wouldn't give
clause.
us like the third team or something goofy, but he did not want to go to Tampa Bay, which I don't blame him on.
Sometimes players and their agents will put big market teams on there, like Yankees, so that they can get a little trade kicker. Hey, I'll waive this if you give me an extra $2 million to go to New York or something.
The favorite explanation on a no trade that I ever heard was Torrey Hunter had the Cubs on his list because of the brick wall behind the ivy.
That's awesome.
It's hilarious.
He's basically like, I do not, and he's 100% right.
Can you imagine
he's like,
Buxton playing there? Oh my
No.
god, dude.
oh, he'd be dead by now.
Oh,
I mean, he'd be cussed 5 times a year.
it would be bad, yeah. Okay, number 8, and this is where I feel like Judd's Hockey Show might push back on me here, but Jared Spurgeon is number 8 on my list. He's 32 years old, so he's definitely getting a little older,
Yeah.
but my God, like he is such, like this was one of his better seasons if you look analytically and statistically. He's still in the prime of his career, in my opinion, as a defenseman, and it just kind of depends on what is he going to look like. There's 5 years left on the deal. What is he going to look like in 3 years or 4 years toward the back end of that contract? But if a team came to the Wild, and I'm sure this has happened because they've had some cap issues, and said, "Hey, we'd like to take Spurgeon off your hands," you wouldn't be happy to get rid of one of the better defensemen in franchise history. So I think if you traded Spurge, you'd be able to get a nice little haul of draft picks and or young players because he's still in his prime and he's really, really good.
Dex?
Yeah, I mean, 7.5 AAV for a defenseman of his caliber is pretty, honestly, reasonable. So I can see why people would want to come calling for him. But I think you have him appropriate. I don't think it should be any higher. Like I
got him higher than Baldi, obviously, because I have Baldi out of the.
I think
Out
it's
of the
fair.
West.
Yeah, I think it's fair. He's well respected too. He's not a household name because he doesn't like score highlight reel goals. And defensemen in general, like Cal McCarr, are becoming like the hot new thing. And he's not as a sexy as player as McCarr, but he is a very steady defenseman who's extremely well respected. And you would get a decent haul for him if he were to become available.
Bill Guerin would not trade him.
No.
There you go.
So he does fit.
Okay.
I'm not pushing back.
Okay. All right. Number 7.
Yet.
Juan Duran. 24
Interesting.
years old, 5 more years of team control,
Yeah,
and
this
he's the
would be-
hardest throwing pitcher in baseball.
Yeah.
He's legitimately one of the best relievers I have seen in my life watching the Twins since the early 1990s.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's lights out, and he would be, if traded right now, I think he would be the best reliever traded at this deadline. He would get you 2 or 3, I mean maybe Josh Hader, but like Duran is right in that mix, and he would get you 2 or 3 excellent prospects if you decide to trade him. And the reason why he's more valuable than Josh Hader, if you include contract, is he's under team control for nothing for 5, well, nothing
Yeah,
for
that's
like
true.
3 years, and then arbitration for the 3
And
years.
he's
following
young.
it.
So the arm's in great shape.
24, yeah.
Yeah. That definitely would get you a haul right now if you took him to market.
Okay. And then number 6 here, players that would garner the most trade value, Luis Arraez, 25 years old, one of the best on-base machines in the game, under team control through 2024. I think the only thing that would bring his value down a little bit is just where does he play? Is he a first baseman? Is he a second baseman? He's not a wizard with the glove. But I think a team would be able to just, all right, we're going to put you at second base and we'll just kind of live with any sort of choppiness with the glove. But the way that he has emerged as one of the most reliable on-base machines and hitters, I think he's slightly above Duran. A little more of a track record.
I'll push back a little. I'll push back a bit. I like him a lot, and as a fan, I love him. I don't know that his skill set appeals, and this is going to sound crazy, but I don't know that his skill set appeals across the board in 2022 like it would have in 2001. The lack of a position actually, in some ways, might hurt him a bit. And he's not great. Like, there's not one spot he's not playing, where he's great. Like, if he couldn't play second because Polanco does, but my God, he's a Gold Glove type of guy. I like him on the list. I think he's lower. I'd put him almost last.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 25 and he's cheap, and I think that's why I would for
It's a
sure
good
listen
one.
to putting him below Duran if you wanted to flip flop those guys. But yeah, Dex, what do you think?
I would have Duran ahead of him just because also the age of relievers is blossoming here, and everyone needs high leverage relievers. I mean, we just made the comparison to Hader, but like the Padres, if you really go back to their trade with the Twins, had to trade like 7 players to get Josh Hader. Think about that. Like they basically traded Pagan and Paddock and all these guys. They sent back Taylor Rogers to the Brewers. They had to give a haul just to get Josh Hader, who for like the last 4 years has been the most dynamite electric reliever in baseball. So I think Duran's services are more valued than Arise, and Arise is probably going to win the AL batting title for God's sakes. But yeah, I think Duran would be ahead. I would put him ahead of Arise.
All right, yeah, I could make that swap. So I did type this, and so I could delete and copy paste and change the order. It's not written in stone, so we could move these out. All right, into the top 5 here. Byron Buxton is number 5 on my list.
Okay.
Let's use some analytics here for you guys. So Fangraphs takes every dollar spent on major league players and divides all of the dollars spent on players by their wins above replacement to sort of redistribute how much is a player worth. So Buxton's contract calls for a $15 million salary. According to Fangraphs, he's been worth $26 million already this season, and there's 2 months to go. And he's going to miss like 35 or 40 games.
Yeah.
He is that good, even with the low batting average. It's the power, it's the defense, and it's just his impact on a game. The reason why he's not first, second, or third is because he's got a degenerative knee issue, I think, that would turn some teams off. And one of his main assets, which is straight line center field speed, is only going to erode year after year now that he's in his late 20s. So at some point he'll have to move to like a corner outfield spot or somewhere else.
Yep.
But right now, I mean, he is vastly outperforming his contract, and I think the fact that he can even play 120 plus games would teams would say, well, I can get him for $15 million a year. Right. Yes, please.
What could you get for him?
I mean, you get a couple of top 10 organizational prospects for him for sure.
Okay.
Probably minimum.
Fair. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the salary is fair. I mean, it's the most. I think it's still like one of the most intriguing contracts in baseball, just because he basically gets incentive bonuses for MVP voting and plate appearance, and good for him, I guess. But his value of being, let's just call it as $15 million for a guy who's clearly going to be a 30 home run hitter and play arguably Gold Glove caliber defense. Take that any day.
It might be the most fair contract in all of pro sports.
Yeah, a great base, and then if you perform beyond what you normally do games-wise and whatnot, then we'll gladly pay you $5 extra million. You go get third in the MVP voting.
But like there are nights, as we saw last night, where he simply can't play, and so like he's willing to accept that, which is cool, because I think ordinarily a player would say, well, who cares? I'm great when I play. So I think that this is one of the most fair contracts that I've ever seen from both sides.
Yeah. Okay, number 4. Karl-Anthony Towns. So this is a complicated one.
You tried to run him out of town.
I did, a little bit. I didn't go all in on it, but I wouldn't have. I think
What
if you would have asked
show were you
me,
listening to that night?
well, I'm saying if you would have listened after Game 3, you would have heard me. I wasn't like, I didn't put together like trade ideas yet for him, but I was very much, hey, if they want to trade him, I will fully support it and I will help him move. But he is one of the most talented 7-footers in the history of the NBA. He's one of the best shooters, period, any size in the NBA. And he's 26 years old. He's a unicorn offensive player. I don't think he gets as much as a Gobert gets, because Gobert is the best defensive big man we've seen in 20 years. So I think you look at what Gobert landed, and I should make a note here that I've took Gobert off this list because it's partially inspired by him too, but Gobert is not on my list.
Okay.
You could probably put him in here somewhere, but Gobert is not on my list because we just saw what the trade package is.
Yep.
So I think he would get something slightly less than Gobert got. I don't think you get more than 4 first-round picks for Karl-Anthony Towns. But you would get a haul. Like some team would give you at least 2 or 3 future first-round picks for him to be like the second or third piece, maybe the third piece on a team that's ready to pop. And he can just slide on, go score 20 points, shoot some threes or whatnot. So what do you think? Towns at 4.
I think it's very fair. Yeah, and I do think that. So I think part of the problem right now in this entire league is that the Gobert trade has gummed up trades. Like it's like I need to get that much back. It seems like we ain't gonna trade you that. But yeah, I think if you traded Towns, I mean, hell, let's put Towns on the Lakers with LeBron, for instance. It would change the dynamic of your team because of Towns' skill set potentially overnight. So yes, I think that he is a guy, and that's where the frustration lies, though. The frustration lies in we want to see the consistency of that player, right?
Yeah.
And so like there are times where you're like, oh, that forget about it. And then there's times where you see what he could do, and you're like, oh my God, let's see that consistently, especially in big games. But yes, I think that Towns among players in this town would get you an absolute haul back.
Number 3, Justin Jefferson. So let's look at what Tyreek Hill landed here for a second. So Tyreek Hill, who was further along and closer to free agency, Tyreek Hill got 5 draft picks in compensation or the Chiefs did for Hill, but only one of them was a first-round pick, and it was a late first-round pick. So they got a 2022, the 29th overall pick, and then they got the number 50 pick, the second-round pick, 4th, and then a 4th and a 6th in 2023.
Right.
Jefferson would get more than that because A, he's better than Tyreek Hill, and B, he still has a couple really cheap years left on that first-round rookie scale contract. But there's always the backdrop of have fun while it lasts because you're going to have to pay that dude $30 million a year when it's time.
Right.
So the contract being in the background is going to limit his trade value a little bit, especially with how many great young wide receivers are popping up in the first and second rounds.
Yeah.
So I think teams are, it's a little bit less of a supply and demand urgency compared to quarterbacks, the way that receivers are popping up in today's NFL. But he would garner a haul for sure.
I'm surprised he's 3rd. I thought he'd be 1st or 2nd at the very least. The other thing that I will say to your point, because yes, I think best case for a team is that you sign him to a massive extension next spring. He plays the last year. He plays the 4th year on his low salary, and then it kicks in year 5. But here's my thought, because this position is evolving and changing rapidly, especially when it comes to pay structure. Would teams be scared off by the fact that they're going to have to pay him, or are we almost getting to a quarterbackian situation here where you're looking for that guy and willing to pay that guy?
Could be.
Because, like, Debo just got paid. I mean, if you go down
and Jefferson's
the list,
not a guy that you have to worry about getting in trouble to this point. Like, he's just,
as far as I
like
can
a
tell,
mature guy.
Here's the weird thing. He's one of the greatest kids I've seen. Like, everything he does on the field and with that jersey on is not selfish. I mean, he handles himself. I mean, he's a cool cat, but he handles himself like, I don't know, a tight end or something. Like the whole diva thing. But I just wonder if we are reaching a place with receivers in particular where teams are so desperate to get their hands on a guy like JJ that they almost say, yeah, we're going to have to pay him, but at least we have one.
Could.
Because he's that good.
Could be.
Dex?
I guess with Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill getting traded, and both of them are obviously older than Jefferson. Like Devontae just got a 2nd and a 3rd. Tyreek Hill was like a 1st, a 2nd, a 4th. There's like a 5th and 6th in next year's draft. I guess I don't know what the equivalent would be for JJ. Like if you were to trade him after this season, and like Diggs, Diggs was for a 1st round and like a 4th round swap. So I guess if you were to trade him after this year, you'd probably get more than all of those acquisitions, but I still don't know what teams would give up to get him just because wide receivers are blossoming throughout the NFL.
They are. You can find them in the draft easier. I'm not saying you're going to find a Jefferson, but would you rather keep all your draft picks and get a guy that's on a rookie scale contract? Plus, he's one of 53 on a roster. So even though he's amazing, if you took him off the Vikings, they don't go from like 8 wins to 5 last year. You know, they probably go from 8 to 7 or 8 to 6. I think Vegas would tell you that a top wide receiver is maybe worth a win. So I don't want to overestimate
Right.
they're not going to give you a Ricky Williams trade package from
Right.
20 years ago for him, but he would be worth all. Yeah.
That being said, the 2020 draft is the cautionary tale first round receivers, right? Like, go through it. 5 guys. Jefferson's the last one taken, I believe. Easily the best.
Mm-hmm.
So like that. The cautionary thing now is you can find them, and I have said that for years. I mean, Diggs, 5th round pick, but like if you're just like we're gonna go find one, good luck with that, because there is a very important group of guys who are dynamic there. So I do think if you took him to market now, it would be different than it would have been if you tried to trade a guy like him a few years ago. That's for sure.
And that brings us to the top 2 trade value assets in Minnesota sports.
I'm excited to hear the top 2.
What order will they be?
Okay.
Yeah.
Kirill
They are, but-
Kaprizov is number 2.
Okay.
And what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the Matthew Tkachuk trade package from a few weeks ago. And they're about the same age, 23, 24. Tkachuk has spent he got in the league when he was 18 or something.
Yeah.
Right.
But the Tkachuk trade not only landed you a star current NHL player, also a prospect of note and a first-round pick. Lottery protected, but a first-round pick. You kind of hit the
Really good
trifecta
defenseman.
of assets that you would want in return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great
So
trade by Calgary.
Kaprizov might even land. That's a pretty similar package. But in the NHL, if you can trade a player and get a star player back, a top prospect back, and a first-round draft pick back, that's pretty damn good in terms of value.
If they were to lose Kirill, the Wild would they wouldn't be good. Their defense is sound enough that can their defense and goaltending steal some games here and there? I think it can. But Kirill means everything to that team, and with Fiala now gone, I don't think that's a very good team. So, yeah, I think the Tkachuk trade's a pretty good one. They got Huberdeau, and they got top prospects, and great trade by Calgary there, and Florida had to change things up in general. But if you took Kirill away from the Wild, you're taking away their superstar, and the Wild aren't good anymore.
Yeah. Now the Flames trade is for the fact that they had to trade Tkachuk is a great trade, because there were a lot of fans who thought they're not, they'll get something back, but it's not going to be a return that's going to be equivalent to what they did. Huberdeau and the defenseman that they got back, Uyghur, I believe, are going into the last year of their contracts. Huberdeau, I think, is 30-something. So, there's a downside there, but it's still a good return. But, yeah, as far as untouchables in this town go, Kaprizov's probably there. I don't know that you could get any type of return that made you feel good about it. Tkachuk is a hell of a player. He's not Kaprizov.
And I think you use the word untouchable here. If I were to re-rank these just based on how untouchable are they, and maybe that's what I should have done to begin with, I think you draw the line here with the top 3, and we'll get to the last one here in a second. Justin Jefferson is pretty close to untouchable. Not looking to trade him at all. I think Duran, I don't think Duran's untouchable, but I'm not trading
close.
6 years of Duran at this point.
He's close.
And maybe Buxton, but if someone came along and said,
not anymore.
"Hey, we can take that degenerative knee off your plate," but it would be
we'll just
haul.
remove it from him.
Yeah, we'll just cyborg it.
Yeah. And that means number 1, and I'm probably being biased here, but it's Anthony Edwards. Bill Simmons actually had him as one of the 10 most untouchable players in the entire NBA. The flashes that we saw second half of last season in the playoffs, the guy is turning 21 years old, I think, this week. I think his floor is already borderline all-star. If he doesn't get any better, he's just going to be a borderline all-star every year. His ceiling might even be higher than Dwayne Wade. But a better shooting Dwayne Wade is kind of what his ceiling could be. And he's on this really valuable contract for another few years. And even when he signs the rookie max contract, he's going to be kind of on a discount for the next 6 years. So Anthony Edwards for me is number 1.
Those comps that came out for Anthony Edwards around draft time of Dion Waiters, Jamal Crawford, J.R. Smith,
That's
it is
hilarious.
honestly hilarious and disrespectful when you really think about it now 2 years later. The thing is, if you removed Ant, and maybe pull me over for a hot take here, But with Gobert, Towns, D'Lo, J-Mac, I think the Wolves can still fight for a playoff spot.
Yeah,
but
that's
Anthony
fair.
Edwards is the ingredient X that takes them over the top and is now their next core superstar. So
fair.
if like Anthony Edwards suffered an injury in training camp, I can't believe I'm putting that in the ethos right now. I think the Timberwolves would still compete for a playoff spot. If you took Kirill away from the Wild, I don't think the Wild compete for a playoff spot.
Yeah, there's kind of two definitions here. There's how valuable are they to their team right now? How screwed would the team be without them? And then there's just forget about that for a second. If you offered them up in a trade,
Right.
what would the demand
What would it
be?
look like? Yes.
I think the question that I would ask with those top three, because they're all great players, is this: can they be replaced? Like,
Well, but that's a different question, though.
how difficult.
You guys are both asking a different question.
right. But my question is this: if you took that
You're
player
hijacking
off
this
the
list.
team, if
Classic.
you took that player off the team, I'm just saying, Jefferson can't throw the ball to himself, but he can do something that there's just a small list. I love Ant as a person. I guess my question is, how many players could potentially replace him?
Well,
And I'm not saying it's
that's
a lot.
that's a different. I don't. Well, maybe you do that ranking next week.
Okay.
How
I'm just
valuable
saying,
are they to their team?
If we are sitting in a boardroom about to make trades, I think that's a question
I would love that.
that you have to ask. If
Right,
we are,
but it doesn't change his value in a trade to the team that's trading for
Right,
him.
no, I'm thinking outside the box.
Oh, you know
here.
what? We can win without him, so let's
I'm
just trade
thinking
him for a
I'm
second
thinking
round
I'm
pick.
thinking outside the box here. I'm trying to take this conversation to another place.
Amazing.
It's what makes Sportsnet so valuable.
That
I'm
is.
taking
No,
it to
it
another
is.
place.
Sportsdad is definitely one of the 10 most valuable members of SKOR North, for sure. 100%. There's only
don't
like
even have
4 of
10.
us. But
Do we have? We should do a pecking order of the 10 most valuable people in the
Ross
score,
Brendel, number 1.
internal and external.
Jesse Pierce, number 2.
AJ
Yeah.
Fredrickson, no
Yeah.
question about
Oh,
it. He's
yeah.
number
Number
3 in
three,
my
yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every weekend, guess who's there?
Stock
to
is
post
rising, yeah.
The random Judds.
Yeah.
Who's getting late night Judd videos texted to him at 10:30
AJ.
p.m.? It's AJ.
Always up.
A shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company for not only helping us keep the lights on at SKOR North, but helping businesses maximize their success for over 100 years. Federated's corporate culture grounded in equity, integrity, teamwork, and respect. And these 4 cornerstones create the foundation that supports all interactions and decision making. Find out for yourself how Federated can impact your business at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, there it is. That's the Tuesday pecking order.
Good job.
You guys can let us know in the YouTube comment section if you agree, disagree, you think something's way off, or if I miss somebody, and we'll definitely do we'll either do an emergency episode if the Twins do something bigger beyond Jorge Lopez, or we'll talk about it in retrospect on tomorrow's show. Plus, write that down, predictions on both Mackie and Judd and Purple Daily. And this is your last chance tonight. Midnight is when the SKOR North and Purple Daily pop-up store closes. SKORNorth.com/shop. SKORNorth.com/shop for your Before I Die t-shirts, your Purple Daily hats, SKOR North shirts. We'll see you guys tomorrow.